This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to We All Be News. News-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another wonderful edutainment edition of the Artivist Thinks. I'm your host for this empowerment, infotainment, edutainment session, Brother Ron, also known as R2, C2, H2, the Artivist, and this is We All Be. And I got a couple of things I want to talk about. First and foremost, I actually, back on July 12th, 2015, I attended the Nathan Bedford Forrest birthday rally at his grave site, which is used to be Forest Park, now known as Health and Science Park or Sciences Park, near UT Medical, University of Tennessee Medical facilities. July 12th, 2015, I went down there. I was basically probably only one of 5 black folks or African Americans in attendance. It's about close to 700 white people from throughout the country that came to honor General Nathan Bedford Forrest, a Civil War hero or villain, depending on who you're talking to, a notorious slave trader, peddler in human or melanated flesh, and also the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. He is buried permanently under an equestrian statue, which is a horse statue. Been there since 1904, alongside his wife. He died in the 1870s. I believe he had like some type of extreme chronic diarrhea, and also with complications from diabetes. You know, depending on what source you look at on that one as well. Been there, and that statue is valued, I believe, at $5 million. The city council, the Memphis City Council, recently voted to remove his remains and the statue from the park, which raised a lot of controversy. So you see, the city has been paying for the upkeep of his park and gravesite since 1904, when they moved his body over there, the sons of Confederate veterans. And they come back every year to honor him around his birthday, which is July the 13th. So they honor him the Sunday before on July the 12th. You know, the governor of Tennessee made his birthday some type of special day, you know, and people say they're not racist, they're not white supremacists, but they honor these type of people on taxpayers' dime. And now, you know, his gravesite has been paid for by the taxpayers, been upkeep by the taxpayers since 1904. And this is a majority black city. Not too far away from where he's buried is the scene where Dr. King was killed on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, which is just a couple blocks away, which is now known as the National Civil Rights Museum. And also, you go down on Bill, where you also had the newspaper offices of Ida B. Wells Barnett, a brilliant journalist, investigative journalist, freedom fighter extraordinaire, anti-lynching crusader. She was ran out of Memphis. Her offices were burnt down on Bill Street. Ran out of Memphis and told never to return or we'll kill you, nigga. So all within this, facility, you have Dr. King getting assassinated. Ida B. Wells getting run out of Memphis from her newspaper office, the Free Speech and Headlight. And also, you have Southern Records, which is the birthplace, arguably, of rock and roll, who discovered, Sam Phillips, the founder of Southern Records. He discovered Elvis Presley, and he was the first person to record people like B.B. King and Muddy Waters, Johnny Cash, people like that. So Memphis is really the cultural commerce of America. This is a cultural commerce hub. This is a distribution hub of American culture. It starts in Memphis, and just like I told you, all within a few blocks, those historic and significant places. So let me get back on track. So I went to the Nathan Bedford Forrest rally, right? And, the white folks were surprised to see me there for some strange reason. The white folks were taking them back, some motorcycle gangs. So upper middle class white folks were mean. So you had like a cross section of white society, of white America, present to honor this man who was the first Grand Wizard of the KKK. And also, this is around the time the controversy with the Confederate flag. As you know, on July 10th of this year, the Confederate flag was taken down from atop the South Carolina State House. So they took it down from the flagpole, which was flowing over the State House. of South Carolina, the legislative house, and been flying there since the 1960s. They took it down in response, allegedly, to the tragic nine black folks' lives who were taken at Mother Emanuel, Charleston, South Carolina. 9 black folks lost their lives, including the minister and state senator, Reverend Clementa Pinckney, and 8 of his people lost their lives in Bible study, allegedly to white supremacists. Dylan Roof, who sat with them for about an hour doing Bible study. That's how cold-blooded this guy allegedly is, if he is the person who did this crime. So they removed the flag July 10th, and there's been a controversy about, the Confederate flag. Is it heritage? Is it hate? What is the Confederate flag? What is it all about? And also, you tied into that, the movement to remove Confederate memorials and, artwork and stuff like that in state houses throughout the country. Rewriting history initially. They said it should be put in a museum. Who really visits museums? So really it's hiding and rewriting history as we speak, which is interesting. And some people will argue, hey, the American flag is really the Confederate flag. More human rights violations and atrocities were committed under Old Glory, the Bars and Stripes, than it was under the old Confederacy. So, there's a looming debate, but here, okay, I'm just setting it up, and I'm gonna do a summary of that in our next session. But I want to talk about this in particular. I saw something that was very, in my opinion, disturbing. I saw a sister with 2 little ones. I think she was the mother, and she had 2 little kids. I think they was under 5 years old. Sometimes I can't tell the age of kids. I'm not good at that. I don't have any kids right now, to my knowledge. So it's like they was under 5 years old, or about 5 years old, all right? And she had her kids, and this white man was posing at the equestrian statue, which sits atop the graves of Nathan Bedford Forrest and his wife. He had this large Confederate flag, this waving in the wind. And the black woman with her kids, they had water, a bottle of water, and watermelon. I shit you not. They were serving bottled water and watermelon. I didn't eat or drink shit. I'm just like, 700 white people, 5 black folks. They all looking at me like, what are he doing here? He's not afraid of us? Not all of them. Some people said some shit like that. I said, I pay taxes here. It's more of you just visiting. And also it's more of me than it is of you. But not at this moment. I don't know where nobody in Memphis that were black at that moment, but it was like a 700 white folks from around the country, dressed up early for Halloween. I guess they call themselves Civil War reenactors or whatever, but Halloween came early. It was hot in July. And anyway, getting back to the sister and the 2 kids, right? So the white man, I guess his wife or girlfriend was taking the pictures. The white man wanted the black folks to pose with him. And so they, without even missing a beat, they agreed to posing with the white man with the Confederate flag. She held the Confederate flag. I think one child had a water bottle and one had a watermelon. And I just had to snap that picture. I said, oh my God, really? Snap that picture. I guess she was suffering from heat stroke. It was so hot outside, but I had to snap that picture for posterity. And I just found it interesting. Because what bothered me was not necessarily that, but what she told her kids. She told her kids, now you make sure you tell them that you love them. Go ahead, tell them that you love them. And they, that's their mom, they complied with her wishes, they consented. And the white man said something to her, he loved them too, or some stuff like that. And I was wondering myself, I should have interviewed the sister, but I was just too much, taken aback by that moment to even think about really interviewing her. But my thing is this. You tell them to love him in particular, and white folks in general, but do you ever tell your kids to love themselves? What good is it for black kids to love other people if they can't love themselves? There's a lot of self-hate among black folks in this era. And a lot of it is because of the system that we occupy. which is a system not based on justice, not based on reason when it comes to black people, but based on white supremacy, racism. You are living in a world where the media is dedicated to character assassinating black folk, men and women and children. We do not control the major media outlets. Brother Malcolm told us 50 years ago, one of the greatest things he ever did for black people, as far as I'm concerned, he educated, he informed us that the media is the most powerful entity on the face of the planet because it influences the minds of the people, of the masses. So a lot of folks, I be looking at, comments online on different newspaper articles dealing with race, or if the suspect was black, you can see the venom come out in white America when it comes to black people. Whether we are victims or we are the perpetrators of any crimes, we seem like we can't even get no empathy or compassion from white America when things happen to us. But when things happen to them, or when somebody commit a horrible evil, that's like Dylan Roof. When white folks had the nerve to say that he was sick and that he was demented and he needed help. Nah, he was a white supremacist. He's a racist. They gave him a goddamn Burger King burger when they arrested this man. They want to call him, oh, he's a young kid, he's a boy. The judge said, we got to show compassion for Dylan Roof because his family just as much as victims as the people who lost their 9 family members. As the families who lost their 9 family members. And black folks are so willing to forgive. He didn't even ask for forgiveness, Dylan Roof, as far as I know, to forgive him for this atrocious act within 48 hours. Whereas the alleged Boston bomber asked the people for forgiveness and they wouldn't give it to him. As a matter of fact, they gave him the death sentence. So this is the mindset that we live in. We live in a mindset where black people they say, well, Bill Clinton is the first black president because he could play the saxophone poorly, like Farrakhan said, paraphrase him, or badly. And whereas Bill Clinton, when he was campaigning for president of the United States back in 92, got on an airplane back to Arkansas where he was governor to witness the execution of a mentally retarded black man on death row. But yet black folks love the Clintons, who oversaw the 94 violent crime bill, which put 100,000 more police on the street, who repealed the Glass-Steagall Act, which led to an economic recession, if not really depression, years later, who oversaw the NAFTA bill, which led to the outsourcing of American-made jobs. And also his violent crime bill led to states spending more money on building a prison. So now we got this massive private industry prison complex, and also he gutted welfare. So you got, a nation where really the middle class is non-existent and the poor is growing poorer every day. Because it doesn't make sense to me to be able to work at Walmart for 40 plus hours and still need an EBT card, but yet the Waltons are like feudal lords sitting on this massive wealth empire, one of the largest corporations in the world. You live in an inhumane system. People talk about, we pro-life. But how can you be pro-life in a system that does not respect humanity? How can you blame a woman for getting an abortion when this system has no rights that it was willing to respect as relates to people that are poor or of color? Black folks are more Dred Scott than we are American citizens in this country. The way they treated Dred Scott in 1857 is still the way they treat black folks in 2015. The 13th Amendment did not abolish slavery. For if it had abolished slavery, read it closely, there will be no prisons. See, it's all about the loopholes. It's not about what's being said, but what's not being said. And that's where the research come in. So you got a system that does not respect the rights or the humanity of black folks, all right? And you got a media that character assassinate black victims like they did Emmett Till. No, Mike Brown is Emmett Till. I had black folks try to argue me up and down that Mike Brown is not like Emmett Till. Well, Emmett Till character was assassinated by the state. They try to link him being like his father, who was an alleged rapist and a murderer. But here's the thing: in World War II, I think you had about 90-something people executed for crimes who were soldiers over in World War II, overseas. 95. You had like 83 of those 95 be black people. Now, do you think they got a fair trial? If you black, you already guilty. It's like Louis Armstrong saying, Is the sin in my skin? What did I do to be so black and blue? See, if you born black, you're born guilty in this system. So I'm getting back to the sister. She told her kids to say they love the white man. But my thing, I want to know, does she ever tell her kids to love themselves? See, it's about self-love. Self-love is self-healing. It's real self-medication in a system, if you are a color dealing with a system of white supremacy. We setting up our kids for failure when we don't tell them the truth about what's going on. Like the Confederate flag was created by white supremacists. See, they lose their argument about the Confederate flag because it was created by white supremacists. And they said it was the white man's flag. Okay? The creators and collaborators of these Confederate flags, not just the one that's the most infamous, the battle flag, but also all the Confederate flags. Their goal was to create a flag for white supremacy. They say it from their own fucking words from the grave. So when white folks tell me that it's not about it's not about hate, it's about heritage, what fool am I to believe that garbage? And if it is about heritage, do the research on the history, because the Confederate flag is also a part of black heritage, which is true. But the way they tell it is not truthful. It's bullshit propaganda. Now, what I would say that from my understanding, around 2% of white folks in the South own slaves, but the country was built on slavery. See, people always focus on the South, but you had New York State, New York City. They would think about seceding for the Union and fighting with the Confederacy because they made so much money exporting the goddamn cotton. You understand? This country was built, Ivy League schools were built on slavery. Brown University confessed to that. One of the Ivy League schools. Okay, so every institution in the country exists because of slavery, not because, and capitalism is nothing but a form of slavery, be honest with you. Debt slaves, all types of slavery. Like the way America got its wealth is the reason why America had so much wealth is because they never paid the people who worked the land to create the wealth properly. It's like America's almost like a Walmart, but at least Walmart paid their slaves something. But they still slaves because they can't get free from poverty. Because jobs is not meant to make you wealthy. Like they say, jobs mean just over broke, right? But anyway, getting back to the sister. Memphis, she told her kids that. Say, love the white man. Love everything about the white man. So their kids, like at 4 or 5 years old, they are already indoctrinated to loving white folks more than they love themselves. Because she was adamant about making the kids say you love him. And he probably said, in his mind, wow, we're going to own them for another generation or 2 or 3. Because the education that we're getting in the system is not education, it's indoctrination. Unless you create your own school with your own curriculum, you'll never be liberated. George Washington there was not trying to fight to get into Harvard or Yale when they was fighting against the British. They were fighting to be liberated in terms of they want to decide their own fate. They want to decide their own existence. They want to live on their own terms. A lot of us are not willing to take that responsibility on as black people. And it's the one scene, one of my favorite movies of all time is Glory. And it really sums up the black experience in white America and white supremacy. It was a scene when the 54th Massachusetts was down in South Carolina, right before they was, going to get in that battle of Fort Sumter. They were down there with their commanding officer, and they went on a raid of a town with another white commander who led colored troops for the Union Army. And it was some scenes in there that let me know what time it was. I remember I used to look at this movie all the time when I was in 5th grade. There was one scene in particular where a black soldier, a Union soldier, under the command of not Robert Gould Sharp, but the white man, the Jayhawker from Kansas. I forgot his name. But he attacked a black female servant, a black maid. He, put his hands on her and slapped her around and just knocked her to the ground, whatever. And then when he went to attack the white woman who tried to intercede, stop him from attacking her servant, the white wealthy landowner slave person, he was shot. He said, "Get your hands off that white woman, nigga." Something like that. Like, it's okay to attack your people, but keep your hands off the white lady. Even though we robbing her and raiding the town and burning and looting, you don't touch white women, boy. You keep your hands off. He didn't say it like that. I'm just saying it like that. But the problem with black folks is that we are willing to join armies and militaries to fight for the upkeep of white supremacy, racism, but we're afraid to fight for our own liberation. Think about what I just said. We are willing to fight and die in Uncle Sam's army, to get wounded and maimed and handicapped for Uncle Sam, but we're not willing to fight for our own liberation. You gotta start thinking about this stuff. Like I told you about in World War II, you had 95 people put to death by the United States Armed Forces soldiers who served under the Old Glory were put to death. 83 of the 95 were African Americans, and they buried over in France in a cemetery section known for dishonorably discharged soldiers who committed crimes against humanity. But that's the greatest crime, is that we are willing to fight and sustain white supremacy. Like those soldiers in the Houston race riots of 1917, when them black soldiers marched on Houston to, get revenge for the police brutality committed against their two brothers, and also to defend black womanhood, because the original reason for it happening was because a black soldier came to the defense of a woman that was being beat up by the police. A black woman was being beat up by the police in the 4th Ward in Houston, Texas, back in August the 23rd, 1917. So not only were they punished by Uncle Sam for defending themselves, but they were also, many of them were hanged. I believe 19 were hanged and over 40 was sentenced to life in prison. But they was willing to put their lives on the line for Uncle Sam. But when they fought to defend their lives, they were violated in such a degree which we still don't even comprehend, a lot of us. Because if we did comprehend that, a lot of black folks would not be in the military right now. And no white person was charged for anything in that instant. It was the largest murder trial in American history. Just look up Houston race riots of 1917 or the Houston riot of 1917. You had black military folks getting lynched in full uniform, not only in World War I, but also in World War II. Elmsey Moore, the famous Mississippi freedom fighter and civil rights icon, he had to write to the State Department because it was finding so many black soldiers, so many black GIs in the waterways, in the rivers, lakes and stuff of Mississippi, lynched. This back in the 1940s. And also you think about Isaac Woodward, World War II veteran, coming home, going through South Carolina. He got into it with the bus driver. The bus driver called the sheriff. The sheriff brutally beat him and blinded him for life. He was blind for the rest of his life because the beating he got. And he got the national attention of not only Orson Welles, the famous director and radio personality, but also of President Harry Truman. But nothing happened to the sheriff. Matter of fact, the sheriff, I think, passed away in the last 10 years. So the sheriff didn't die not too long ago. I think Isaac Woodward died in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. But look up those type of cases, and you will see why are black folks fighting to upkeep this mess. But also with Nathan Bedford Forrest, his best soldiers were black men, because he was, like I say, he was a notorious slave trader, and he owned some slaves. He went like 43 or 44 of his slaves, black male slaves, and told them that they fought for him, that he would free them at the end of the war. They would earn their freedom. And he gave some of these black soldiers the best horses, the best food, the best uniforms. Because Nathan Bedford Forrest actually used his own money, because he's a millionaire at that time. He used his own money to raise an army, to raise a cavalry. And his security detail were these black soldiers. They were known as the Green Beret. There's like, the Green Berets today of the army. But it's no secret that some of the best soldiers in the world are black soldiers. They knew this since ancient times. Okay? So, but yet you are willing to fight to upkeep and sustain and protect white supremacy racism, but you refuse and you are afraid to fight for your own liberation. Think about that, y'all. Think about that. Now, on the flip side of that, you had black veterans and soldiers coming out to World War II and stuff, fighting for themselves and fighting for their liberation. People like Medgar Evers and his brother Charles Evers. People like brother Robert F. Williams, Radio Free Dixie, out of North Carolina, fought for himself. Shout out, to him. And he was in the shootouts with the Klan along with his wife. They were shooting out with the Klan up in North Carolina, and protecting womanhood and promoting manhood, as Judge Joe Brown would say. You have, a lot of people, the Dinkins for Defense out of Bogalusa, Louisiana, who was the armed security detail for Dr. King when he finished the march against fear for James Meredith on Highway 51 back in 1966. So you have stories of people fighting back. Even the Montgomery bus boycott would not have been successful for returning World War II and Korean War veterans coming back home to protect the success of the boycott. See, we get this nonviolent thing confused. That nonviolent shit will get you killed. Because a lot of folks that was nonviolent that was getting killed. Okay? Because you live in a system where its language that it speak is military science and war. It's this military science speech. It's like this system, this country was created through violence. It was created through violence, point blank simple. Not through talking it out and being peaceful, but being warlike, being warmongers. There's a reason why the founding fathers were pirates and gangsters and bootleggers and rapists and murderers. Okay, so let's stop twisting the truth. So I say all this to say, I do wonder if the sister is teaching her kids that, because if she not, all she doing is creating clay pigeons and collateral damage for white supremacy. Clay pigeons and collateral damage for white supremacy. All right, family, if you like what you heard today, please feel free to share the good news. If you want to support and sustain the movement, please feel free to donate. Information at the end of this video. In the words of Greg Duke Ellington, we love you madly. And keep on producing and pushing. I'm out.